for us today. The agenda is at the front page of our packets. Are there any additions or alterations to the agenda? If not, could I have a motion to accept the agenda as printed?
So moved. Second.
Ms. Figueroa, second Ms. Nugent. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda stands approved. Thank you. The minutes from, the minutes are not here. Never mind. Minutes will be presented at the next board meeting on April 25th.
Chairman, that's all. Great.
Yes, I know. Even a reminder in here for me. We have two special recognitions this month. First up is 20-year service in Trenda Richards, customer service operator. Hi. Welcome. Congratulations. You're the guest of honor. You are in the middle. Rose between two thorns. When Trenda Richards, also known as Trinda, came to CDTA in 1998 as a telephone information operator working in our call center. Her mom, Myrtle Mims, worked here at that time as a bus operator and told her it was a good place to start her career. As many of you may know, Ms. Mims was a longtime bus operator in the Albany division, retiring from the company in 2001. Trinda says CDTA gave her a chance when she was a young college grad, and she has never regretted it. She says she stayed for the past 20 years because she loves it here. It's a fun atmosphere, and her coworkers are like her extended family. And Trenda has received several perfect attendance awards since she began. She is one of the hardest working employees and never shies away from overtime. She has held the same position since she began and says she wouldn't change a thing. Trenda says she loves the interaction with customers who are calling for service information, and she enjoys helping people out and helping customers navigate their way around the capital region. She truly enjoys helping people out. In her free time, Trinda enjoys traveling, especially to New York City. She also enjoys going to the gym, crafting, knitting, reupholstering furniture, and making sewn flowers. She is very close with her mom, Myrtle, and enjoys spending time with her. We asked her about her future plans at CDTA, and she says, God willing, she will retire from here, but not for a few more years. And Trenda, thank you for your 20 years of great service, for your hard work, dedication to the company and our customers. Thank you.
Sit down.
I think so. We need to sit down for the next
The next one, Dave and I have to sit down. But before
Somebody knows something I don't?
before we talk about our next guest, just a little bit about Trenda. I've known her since the day, actually I've known her before she worked here. And you know, she comes from great stock. Her mom was a longtime bus operator here, and Myrtle came to me one day and said, you know, my daughter's looking for a job. Do you think maybe she's interested in telephone information? And send her in, you know, do the best we can. And all these years later, I mean, she's rock solid up in the call center. I don't know how she works as much as she does, and does what she says she does in her spare time. But you know, people like Trenda are behind the scenes people. But you know, those play on words. She does help people navigate our system, which you know sometimes, especially to the uninitiated, is not as easy as we want it to be. So, with the help of Trenda and other people in the call center, it is made a lot easier. So thanks to Trenda for what she does.
And next up is Mr. Joseph M. Sparana, Jr.,
Young Junior.
9-year board member at CDTA. Carm's going to read the resolution for us, and then I'll add a few comments after that, so.
I still have a voice, so be careful.
There is no rebuttal time.
I'm a taxpayer now.
So, several of us put these together. I guess one of the advantages or disadvantages to being long tenured is, you have to sort of use your memory and come up with some of this stuff. But most of this is true.
You're smiling already.
I am. Whereas Joseph M. Sperana Jr. has represented Rensselaer County with much distinction as a board member of the Capital District Transportation Authority since December of 2008. And whereas Mr. Sperana served the CDTA board with much enthusiasm and a straightforward, get-it-done attitude. And whereas Mr. Sperana brought to the board a multitude of talents, which included a long career at the New York State Department of Transportation, supervising the construction of roadways and bridges throughout the capital region and throughout New York State. And whereas Mr. Sperana used his talents to help guide CDTA projects and initiatives, it is his engaging and common sense approach to the work we do that will long be remembered as the centerpiece of his contributions to CDTA. Whereas Mr. Sperana is deeply committed to the people of Rensselaer County, he brought a community view of issues to the board and could translate that view into perspective that was helpful and supportive of board deliberations and decision-making. And whereas Mr. Sperana comes from a family with a tradition of service to our country, and because of that, he looked for ways to extend gratitude to service veterans. Mr. Sperana was the driving force behind our Veterans Initiative, where all honorably discharged veterans can now ride the CDTA system for half fare. And whereas Mr. Sperana's practical experience as a builder, an engineer, and a community leader brought the practical side of the decision-making process to CDTA. And whereas Mr. Sperana was a passionate, dedicated advocate for all the men and women who work at CDTA, he truly cared about them and personally related to the critical role they play in the development of all of our success at CDTA. And whereas Mr. Sperana is an enthusiastic advocate for the underdog and those who don't have a bully pulpit. And whereas Mr. Sperana was the board secretary who embraced his leadership role and was an active participant at all CDTA functions, representing the board at community employee events with his characteristic charm and his unique brand of humor. And whereas Mr. Sperana provided wise and invaluable counsel and advice to board members and staff members alike. And whereas Mr. Sperana's tenure on the CDTA Board of Directors has come to an end. Now therefore be it resolved that the board members, the staff, and the employees of the Capital District Transportation Authority fondly wish Godspeed and best wishes to Joseph M. Sperana Jr. as he completes this assignment, an extraordinary record of public service. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution, in addition to being spread upon the minutes of the authority, be suitably framed and presented to Joseph M. Sperana Jr.
Are you sure? Why did you call me a pain in the neck then?
That was part of underdog and those who don't have a bully.
Okay, I humbly accept it then.
I think unique was the best. Unique was the best description in there.
I just described a friend of mine that just died. I did a eulogy, and unique was in that. So, but let's stay away from that word right now.
So when Carm writes these, and I think Carm primarily writes these with help from others, but I usually get the opportunity to preview them. And my response to Carm, and I took a couple of reads at this one, and I think it was a day or a day and a half before I actually got back to you. And you know what, my response to Carm was, I read this a couple times. There was one little typo, which was a tiny thing. And I said, when I think of Joe as part of the bully pulpit thing, but I think of Joe as an advocate for the little guy, the person who doesn't have a voice to speak for themselves. And I wanted to make sure that was captured in there, because I think that does kind of sum you up as to what's important to you.
You're right, thank you for that.
It's been a pleasure. to serve with you from my home county. And we certainly wish you the best. Don't be a stranger. Carm says you stop in periodically.
Twice a day.
I'll have to tell you, I've been a lot of places, worked with a lot of different people, and as a group, this is probably the best I've ever worked with. Carm took this place from a bus company up to a transit system. Very rare that you get somebody that can grow a company and then be CEO. His secret weapon sits here in front of you, who is the anchor of the CDTA board, and always has been. I don't know anyone that has more passion and gives more to his community than Dave. I'm telling you, I know what it's like, and everyone here, it's a big deal, and you got to be proud of yourselves. It's still going to go on. I'm still going to watch the buses, and I'll think of all you guys. The best thing I can say is yesterday I observed a high-ride bus, and the driver was smiling. So, what more can you say?
So just one little additional thought here. I guess this, in my mind, this story will always, have Joe Sperana after. And I hope I'm not divulging any secrets. They're not secret, but it's an inside baseball kind of thing. Joe called me one Saturday afternoon. I think I'm coming out of Stewart's. He said, "What are you doing?" "Having a cup of coffee." "Where are you?" I said, "I'm in Latham." He said, "You should be in Watervliet." Joe had observed one of our buses pulled over, and one of our crews working on the bus. Actually, I think they were hooking it up to the rig. They were going to tow it. And he noted something that some of us would drive by and not see. He said, "Carm, they have their safety vests." He said, "They should have their safety vests, absolutely." He said, "And he's in a typical job." He said, "They're probably cowboying it, getting it done, quick, boom, boom, in and out. They're real close to the garage." He said, "But it's their safety." So I talked to Lance, and it was two guys just looking to get it done, really quick, get that bus out of there. But Joe kept emphasizing. He double checked with me that, on Monday. "Hey, did you follow up on that?" And it wasn't about nabbing somebody for doing something that they did wrong. It was, "Hey, I'm looking out for their safety. You gotta have their vests on. Middle of the day, but you need them." And I appreciated that. I know Lance appreciated that. And deep down, the two guys who were just reminded to wear their safety vests, I'm sure appreciated it. Because, you read a lot about what happens when people are towing vehicles on highways and things of that nature. It's not a pretty picture. But that's Joe. Joe was looking out for their safety. Saturday afternoon, he could have just kept going. He didn't. He called me, and we followed up and fixed it. Seems like a little thing, but in my mind, that's Joe's plan.
I've seen so many people killed in the construction industry. Stuff like that just sticks out. You got a friend one day, he jumps out in front of a car, not thinking, no more. You go to his wake.
Can we get a photo?
Excuse me?
Do we need a motion?
Yes.
I make that motion.
Okay.
Resolution 13.
All right, we have a motion recognizing Mr. Sperana. Second, Mr. Krishon, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Any
Any second thoughts?
My mother always said you can't vote for yourself.
Carried, thank you.
Just wanted to make sure.
We're going to get nicer friends.
Wait, fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good.
Oh, we got lunch for you too, so don't go too far.
Oh.
Yeah.
That cake is like a wedding cake, so I get the first shot.
Boy, ain't easy being old news.
Nominating committee. So at the March meeting, the chair appoints a nominating committee for officers who will be elected at the April 25th board meeting. I've already asked Denise if she would chair that, and she's agreed, and Corey and I will be the other members that will serve on the nominating committee. So we will have a report back at the April 25th meeting, and we'll ask you to consider the slate and hopefully elect our new officers. Thank you. Moving into more active committee reports. Performance Oversight Committee, Ms. Figueroa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Performance Oversight Committee met here at CBTA headquarters on the 21st of March at noon. We first had a report, an update, advocacy update from Lisa Morello, who just gave us an update on the advocacy efforts down at the Capitol. We continue to monitor the state budget process, and hopefully we'll see a budget this week. And we'll have more news next month. We have two consent agenda items. The first one is approval of a contract for credit card processing services. In 2014, the CDTA Board of Directors awarded a contract to Bank of America Merchant Services for payment card processing to support the new fare collection system, Navigator. The Navigator system has evolved such that its requirements have precluded us from integrating select functions of card processing with our fare collection system vendors, SPX GenFare point of sale system. Beginning in 2016, GenFare began offering a fully integrated single payment processor arrangement for their customers with electronic payment exchange, otherwise known as EPX. EPX provides benefits over Bank of America for enhancing the credit card payment devices and offering improved security features. The sole source recommendation considerations include that the new EPX services are fully integrated with Navigator, and this vendor is one of the only payment processors that offers full encryption and PCI compliance. Staff deems pricing to be reasonable based on independent estimates of comparable pricing. And at this time, we need a motion to award a 3-year contract with 2 one-year renewals for the purchase of gateway payment card processing services to Electronic Payment Exchange of Wilmington, Delaware, for an approximate amount of $180,000. The total costs are based on sales volume, card type, and credit card company.
Thank you. I have a motion to award a sole source contract for payment card processing services to Electronic Payments Exchange of Wilmington, Delaware.
I'll move it.
Mr. Lahat, thank you.
Second.
Second, Ms. Nugent, thank you. Discussion on the resolution?
We did have some, extensive discussion at the committee meeting, just that this is really the only service that's compatible with our current system and brings us into compliance. If we don't do this, we will not be in compliance in terms of security features.
Any discussion? Denise's update? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution's carried. Thank you.
Okay, next was our annual review and approval of the procurement manual. Public authorities law requires that authorities review their procurement guidelines on an annual basis. Based on a staff review of the manual, there are no major changes being recommended this year. Same updates that are outlined here. And there are some updates to the definitions, formalization of the debarred list consultation procedure, Buy America updates, liquidated damages calculation clarification, sole source procurement updates, protesting procedures, micro purchase updates. And these were minor updates, these are not major changes in these areas. And the procurement manual was provided to all of the board members for review prior to the meeting. So at this time, we need a motion to approve the procurement manual as updated.
And a motion to approve the CDTA procurement manual. Mr. Binsky, thank you. Second.
Second.
Ms. Figueroa, thank you. Discussion on the procurement manual? There very important and exciting document.
Fascinating.
Emphasis on important. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried, thank you.
Okay, next we had a report from Sarah Matrose on the Davis-Bacon audit annual report. Sorry about that. The Capital District Transportation Authority must ensure it is conducting business with vendors who are operating in compliance with the Davis-Bacon and related acts. The audit consisted of reviewing contracts and invoices for vendors with federal fund expenditures exceeding $2,000 for services during the period of April 1, 2017 through December 31st, 2017. Our audit objectives were to determine whether there were adequate controls and procedures in place to ensure compliance with the Davis-Bacon Act. The audit disclosed 3 areas where improvements could be implemented and management responses were provided to address them. The continued effort from facilities to develop procedures and conduct a training for project managers will result in a more effective approach to our commitment to compliance with Davis-Bacon. That concludes that report. Investment committee items. There were no investment committee items to report because the committee was meeting today before the board meeting, and so that report will be distributed to all board members through email. Administrative discussion items included an update on the Larkin Washington station updates. Mark Ross gave an update on the progress of Larkin Washington. The update included the background and purpose of the project, funding sources, scope, construction details, and schedule of the remaining work. The anticipated opening is expected this summer. Further, we had an IT update from Tom Lugisberg. He gave a presentation on ITMS. The update included the features of the ITMS, the progress of the radio project, next steps and remaining schedule. Focus is being placed on 99.9%, of reliability, and a data-driven system with key performance indicators to make better business decisions.
Better than Ivory Tour. It's only 99.4.
Right. We then had a monthly manager report from Mike Collins, who reported that the MRT was under budget by 40% for the month due to weather and seasonal fluctuations in the housing market. Customer fares were up due to UA renewals. Wages were under budget by 6% and purchase transportation by 8% due to fewer work days this month. Workers' compensation was under budget for the month and year. Parts were up this month due to unscheduled rear end assemblies, radiators, and transmission dampers. We're in the satisfactory cash flow position at this time, and we just paid off our $10 million line of credit for buses. Thank goodness. And then we had a monthly non-financial report from Chris Desney. The total ridership was down 9% for the month and 3% for the year. Star ridership was down 2% for the month and the year. On-time performance was 77%, and there were 0 PMIs not on time. Missed trips were at 16 this month. The mean distance between service interruptions was 51,846 miles. Scheduled work was 85%. There were 15 preventable and 29 non-preventable accidents. 92% of customer complaints were closed within 10 days. We also had website views of 957,349. And there were no executive session items. And that concludes my report. Any questions? Any questions for Mike or Chris on the financial and non-financial reports?
Okay. Thank you, Denise. Planning and Stakeholder Relations Committee report. Ms. Nugent.
Committee met Thursday, March 22nd. Mike Collins presented the fiscal year 2019 operating and capital plan budgets. And the proposed operating plan is balanced at $86.1 million, so the spending increase of 1.9%. And you might want to refer to the budget that's found in your packets on page 17 and 18. I'm just going to highlight a few things associated with revenue and the expenses for operating. We'll talk a little bit about the capital plan. Main revenue projections include the following. Mortgage reporting tax, MRT, at $11.2 million. This is based on the strong economy that's going on right now. A $1.5 million increase in our federal maintenance line to align with the multi-year New York State capital plan, and a conservative increase of 2.2% in state operating assistance. And we'll find out soon. We'll see. Going down to the expenses, there's a wage increase 1%, 6% increase in healthcare premiums, 10% increase in workers' compensation due to a special loss of use awards, 22% increase in professional maintenance services as we continue to invest in technology, 15% decrease in fuel expenses as our price per gallon is reduced by 65 cents per gallon. That's a huge line item there. Capital plan found on page 18. I can slow down and we can have a discussion about some of these. Total for fiscal year 2019 at $21.6 million. About 50% of it is dedicated to bus purchases. Other projects include funding to complete the radio project, bike share expansion, and various facility improvements. The 5-year capital plan includes our 2 BRT projects along with future bus purchases and other large projects. The $202 million plan is not fully funded but provides a strategic direction. Lots of discussion on that. So at this time, we need a motion to approve the fiscal year 2019 operating budget and 5-year capital plan found on page 13, resolution 16-2018.
Motion to approve the operating and capital budgets.
I'll move resolution.
Mr. Willett, thank you.
Second.
Mr. Pashon, thank you. All right, discussion on the operating and capital budgets. Mark.
At the meeting, the federal budget had not been approved, and it did come through, as I understand it, with good funding for transit. So I assume that has a positive impact on our outlook.
Yeah, in my CEO report, you'll see a little more detail. Yes, I hate to use the word but, we need the details to flow down. The big numbers are good. Basically, is in keeping with the original act. It also funds CIG, which is where our bus rapid transit projects live. However, we still need, they have been rated. They're not funded. We need to continue to go through the process. It also fully funds the Tiger Grant program, where we were lucky enough to receive an award that funds the new communication system that we're installing. But as far as how the 5307 numbers break out, that will take several months to bear any fruit. And we think there is fruit. If you just do the rough math, there should be a small bump up there. We'll take any bump up, but I think it's really a win in the collaborative process. What we were hearing in Washington, and several of us from Washington 2 weeks ago, last week, that everyone was in favor of infrastructure and infrastructure funding. However, the age-old question was, how do you pay for it? So we were concerned because there were enough, how do you pay for it, doomsayers, that we worried that there would not be an appropriations bill that was friendly to transit fund. There was an appropriations bill that was friendly to transit. There was a lot of, obviously, horse trading, as is always the case, behind the scenes. But in general, as Mark said, I think it's good news for transit. From the national perspective, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, and we heard that message. I mean, there was some conflict, but generally bipartisan support to support transit, and that's what they came through with. So they didn't just fund, certainly funding it at the levels that were approved in the FAST Act would have been a win, because that's not what the president's proposal was, but funding it at levels a little bit above the FAST Act numbers is encouraging. We did talk a little bit about this in the committee meeting, but there was a lot of discussion about really how to make sure that the funding for the Highway Trust Fund remains, keep the fund solid, because it's scheduled to basically go off a cliff. Gas tax hasn't been increased since 1993. It's 18.4 cents a gallon, and I think transit gets about 2.8 cents of that. So, but a lot of discussion on both sides about a vehicle miles travel tax, because I think there's a recognition that gas tax in the long run, with all of this energy efficiency and moving toward electric vehicles, the gas tax isn't going to be sustainable for long term if that trend continues. So the vehicle miles travel piece was discussed by both Democrats and Republicans in the House and the Senate. And whether and how fast that happens is yet to be seen, but there seems to be support for moving in that direction, more as a user fee kind of thing than as a tax. So I thought that was encouraging too, and that there was at least discussion on both sides. So we'll see. But the funding right now, there isn't enough funding going into the Highway Trust Fund to pay for what's been committed. So the federal government's operating budget essentially makes up for the shortages, and that's not always a great place to be. So
I would say, given what could have been,
yeah,
this is probably the best possible outcome. Does it solve problems for us in personalizing it? No, because the devil's in the details, and we need to get those projects funded. So they're rated. We now have to move them through the process, and we will do that. But is there enough there? Will they fund them? They, Congress. So I'd much rather start with this than some of the scenarios we were looking at. Fill in.
and I think just a couple comments on the operating budget. I mean, it's kind of like Thanksgiving dinner. We get to this point, and it seems like we're approving the budget without a whole lot of discussion. But we've been presented with different scenarios almost since November, I think, when we had to submit a very preliminary budget to the state. So the planning committee has had multiple looks at this. Credit to staff for wringing as much out of the expenditure side as they can. I think we have a solid plan. I'm very proud that we're staying under 2% in spending. That's what the governor has asked agencies to do, and we've been pretty consistent in trying to keep our number under that 2%. So, credit to staff for all you do, because we are having to make things go farther with not less, but we're not really keeping up with the rate of inflation. And our state leaders have been very supportive of us, so kudos to them. They continue to go to the well for us. They have, consistently. The governor, in some cases, has given us increases, and in some cases not. The governor's doing the best he can with what he has to work with, but our local officials in the legislature have really been the ones who've been able to bring home funding increases for us over the last few years. So, my personal thanks to them. And again, the governor's doing what he can with a significant, what seems to be a significant state deficit. So, lots of thanks to go around as far as I'm concerned. And again, especially the staff who does a lot with what we have to work with. So
a little bit more, just actually 2/3 of my CEO report, which is great. But on the state advocacy front, Dave is right, but it's actually the same. It's the same discussion at the state level, almost the same level as is the federal level. The governor's executive budget request is almost like sort of the opening salvo, and we work from there with both houses in the legislature, the Senate and the Assembly. Whereas Dave said, we have garnered a great deal of respect locally and statewide, and over the last several years, not only recognition that there's transit north of Yonkers. It's actually the non-MTA systems. There's transit on Long Island. There's transit in Westchester County. That's been a long and hard battle to get people to understand that. We're there now. The problem is, how do you pay for it? It's the same in Albany as in Washington. There are, I can feel the phone. There are developments literally by the hour as this thing sort of flip-flops around. I don't think our funding will be as healthy as we saw in the one-house bills, which was 9% and 6% respectively on operating assistance. I doubt that seriously, but we're hopeful of something. We're hopeful of a restoration of the one-time $20 million add to the capital program that was made last year. And, we've already been warned, don't count on that. That's not an annual appropriation. And really our discussion with state leaders is we need to not have to wait till April 1 to find out what the appropriations are. It makes budget planning virtually impossible. So what you have in front of you really is staff and the planning committee's best collective, I don't want to use the word guess because it's an educated guess. It's a projection. Thanks, Mark. Looking for a better word than guess. Although honestly, it's what it is. We're doing the best we can here. That 2%, maybe 1%, it may be 3%. So, the capital plan, not unusual to only have the first year funded and the next 4 years be somewhat of a projection. But even that is a best assessment of projects and funding sources. So, as Dave said, really proud of everybody's it's the most collaborative effort of the year. So, be under 2% in this economy is pretty darn good.
Any other comments, questions?
I had neglected to ask at the committee meeting about the fuel line item. And it's a pretty meaningful reduction of about $1 million, pretty substantial savings. How do the mechanics of that work? Is that an agreement with the supplier of fuel? Is there a third-party financing mechanism? And what's the duration?
It's a little complicated, and Mike might jump in on this to help me, but we basically work with our supplier, and we project out that they're able to, they project out what prices are going to be in the future. So we're not really buying futures, but we're buying into the future. So this price of $2.03, 204, was agreed to 18 months ago. So we're trusting them. They're giving us prices, and we're already looking out a couple of years. So we made this agreement with them. We rock solid agreed to this 18 months ago. They were right. We were right. We're beating the market. There have been times, actually as little as 2 years ago, where we weren't as spot on. But what we're looking for is relative stability and budget predictability. So in general, it actually worked, I'd say over the last 20 years, has worked in our favor. But we knew this was coming, and frankly, it saves our bacon on the bottom half of the budget. It's a calculated, looking at it every day, talking to our supplier at Barometer. What are you folks thinking? We're probably going to come to you in the next month, depending on the price. Yeah, maybe tomorrow. The board has given staff the ability to close that deal when they think it's right, and then we report to you. It's about today, 225 for next year. 225, which would be a slight increase over what we are. Maybe. So that's the processing. How do you, okay?
A little bit of magic 8-ball, a little bit of.
Yeah, and different systems do it different ways. Some people literally are playing the futures market across New York State. Some people are literally buying from the pump. There are times when buying from the pump is actually cheaper than using the forecasting model. But all in all, at least we have found, I think board and staff, this is comfortable. It's been okay.
Yeah, it certainly had some certainty.
Yes,
Yeah.
That's the
really
word.
the-
But this year, obviously, it's way in our favor.
Yeah, good number.
Any other questions or discussion on the operating capital budgets? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution is carried. Thank you.
John Scherzer provided an update on season 2 of CDPHP cycle. A soft launch is expected in late April. We will double the number of bikes to 350 and increase the number of stations to 80 throughout our region. Customers will have several pricing options to choose from, including an early bird, seasonal membership, monthly membership, or pay-as-you-go. We talked about student discounts as well, I think. Specially branded bikes will be added this year and used in promotion and partnership development. We are working closely with CDPHP on their marketing campaign. Next meeting will be noon, April 19th, 2018, here in this facility. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Questions for Georgie? Thank you. Mr. Basile, CEO's report.
Thank you, Mr. Stackrow. My report is in your packets, and I can always gauge the level of discussion we have by what we cover in the CEO report before I get to them. So I'm going to skip way down to Navigator. The countdown is on. April 1 is Saturday, and that is the hard cutover day. When we're completely live, we're not selling old products, we're only accepting new products. And I'm very confident that thanks to the work of staff, employees throughout the company that we're ready. There are about 35,000 cards right now in circulation. That's a great number. That's the penetration that we were looking for. At the same time, we're moving the mobile ticketing app along, albeit a little slower than Smart Card. But it's all good there. There's been some bumps along the way, hurdles. There's a lot of transitioning going on. People turning in new products and showing up with a bundle full of old things, and they want to turn them in, and get credit. How do we do that? Why is it there? But all in all, between bus operators, people like Trenda, people who work for actually the Phil shop, literally for the last 2 months, just working the phones, explaining to people how to do this. There's been lines in our lobby here of people bringing product in, looking for exchanges, and on-board buses, different mechanisms we use. Really the main mechanism is bus operators talking to their customers. So, April 1, April 2, probably a little bumpy, we'll be unsure, but we've gotten it done. And I'm really proud of everybody for, kind of sticking with it. It's been part of the ridership issue, no doubt about it. We've done some digging. 2/3 at least of the loss in ridership are people who have a card. So what they're doing with it, how often they use it, is it temporary, is it the transition? We honestly, literally without talking to every one of them, we don't know. So I think really patience is the key. Let's let it play out for a few months, and we'll see how much of the ridership decline it bounces back or doesn't bounce back. But we really simply don't know yet. We do know the impact of weather. There are days, we had these March snowstorms. On those days, our ridership is half of what it was on the same day last year when the sun was out. It is what it is. You have a snowy, cold winter, your ridership's going to dip a little bit. We're not making excuses, but it's just we want to know why. So some of it is weather, some of it is the navigator transition, some of it, frankly, is what we heard in Washington. Just about every bus-only system, especially mid-sized systems, are down significantly. I think we're bucking the national trend. I don't think we're down. I know we're not down anywhere near what a lot of the systems are. And hopefully in a few months, as we get back to nice weather, figure out the navigator transition, our dip perhaps is not as much as 3%. Maybe it's only 1%. Maybe it's flat. Maybe that's wishful thinking. Maybe it's my continued optimism that this system is healthy and is resilient. We'll see. We talked about our financial condition. Really, that's the work of everybody around the table. It continues to be as solid as any system in the state. It obviates the need for us to bang the tin cup. It's not a doomsday scenario, and that's unfortunately not the case with all the systems. Dave's been great. Joe's right. He has been the rock. He accompanies us on a lot of our advocacy visits, which are time-consuming, and oftentimes you wait a half an hour to see somebody, and then they only have 10 minutes to talk to you. But he's been a trooper through all that stuff, and I appreciate it. And hats off to our lobbying team. I think we have the right people working for us. Lisa Morello and Jay Bove, and there's a bunch of people behind the scenes that kind of keep us updated. And the NIPTA people. We have another advocacy team with the association, and we kind of use both of them to our advantage. So it's all good. It's not always all good news, but it's all good. We'll see what comes out. There might be some white smoke later today. Apparently, there is a structure. There's a structure of a deal, but no one really knows what the structure is. But that will leak out with the Jewish holidays and Easter Sunday. They need to get this done, or they're going to miss it. And I think you all know that the governor really prides himself on on-time budgets. The difficulty is there's a lot of policy issues. The way this governor operates, there are policy issues in the budget, which makes it difficult because not only are you just doing the numbers and making sure the numbers add up or need to be what needs to be modified, you're addressing policy issues, like congestion-based pricing or value pricing in the city. That's a big issue. That may be part of the budget, although that doesn't look like congestion pricing is going to happen this time.
Hopefully state safety oversight is one of those policy matters.
God love us if it's not. I ran into our favorite budget advocate for the state DOT at the Capitol. So my activities are, there's a common theme. I spend a lot of time at the Capitol last month. With that, any questions? I think we've kind of covered it.
I didn't have a question, but I thought I would comment that what I've been telling people is Navigator, we just like transfers within a year, so no one will really remember how things used to be because the Navigator and cash will be with what we handle. So we'll get there.
And just a note on the state safety oversight piece, Mike and I were cordially invited to sit with the FTA acting administrator when we were in Washington, because she and her crew are very concerned that New York State doesn't have a state safety plan submitted to DOT yet. So we've been mentioning that in our legislative visits. The governor has included it in his budget as a policy item, and we're optimistic that it's gonna move. But if it doesn't move, essentially all funding to transit systems in any state that doesn't have an approved plan will cease on April 15th of 2019. So we're a year away from doomsday.
Just a clarification, I don't want people who aren't familiar with this to think that the state doesn't have a safety plan.
Oh, no.
The state has a safety plan, but the FTA's
part of the FAST Act.
Part of the FAST Act, there has to be a federally approved state safety So we have to go through, it's actually an administrative issue. You'd think it's easy, but as somebody who I really respect tells me all the time, Carmen, nothing is easy. This should be easy.
Should. We're one of 2 or 3 states that has not yet submitted among 30 who are required to submit. So we're right down to the wire.
And does every state have to get it approved by the legislature?
Well,
Or is it our process?
and I don't know the answer to that.
No, it's different by state depending on how that state administers transportation and their safety plan. But the way ours is, it requires legislative approval. Both houses, the governor, and the whole.
Sure.
So they chose in the budget.
I could be wrong, but I think there's only 6 who have been approved. New York State is one of 3 who has to have legislative work done to get it approved. The other ones, there's still plenty who haven't gotten it approved either.
Correct. They've all submitted though. So now it's on, for those states, it's on FTA's plate to get their submission approved. There's 3 that haven't even submitted yet, as of last week. So,
Which we were told it's
us, Tennessee, and Oklahoma.
And they kept mentioning that during the ABDA legislative conference every time we had a chance.
Right. It doesn't feel
Right.
New York is always first, not Oklahoma and Tennessee. It's New York, Oklahoma, Tennessee, New York, Tennessee, Oklahoma. And you know, my cynical side says don't think that there's not some politics in all this.
So it's a good stuff.
Yeah.
I made the one point of mention in our meetings that because they told us if it's not done by sometime in the fall, the FTA doesn't have the staff to get it approved by April, so it's really something we can't wait to the last minute to do. Even. It's to be done. But they'll get there.
All set. Thank you, Carl. Just a point under, not so much announcements, but maybe good of the order. Carm let us all know about Kathy Colbert's mom passing away. I just want to make a public comment expressing our condolences to Kathy. She's usually here in the chair that Joe is sitting in right now, and she's been to my left for the past 5 years as I've been at this spot. So condolences to Kathy and her family as they go through this difficult time. Thank you for keeping us posted on that.
She will probably be out probably the rest of the week. And as you know, she's announced that she will retire at the end of May. So as with anything, we're taking a step back and trying to figure out, okay, what goes where, what type of replacement, given the changing nature of everything, is what.
Any other announcements? Upcoming meetings, April 25th, May 30th, and June 27th. Motion adjourned. Ms. Figueroa, second Ms. Nugent. All in favor?
Aye.
And outside, now the meeting is over, is the, as expected, for Joe's Sporana, appropriate lunch.
Go eat.
You're supposed to drop it.
Oh.
Mike's up.